talking Auburn football and in the Deep South where college football is king. And in East Alabama where Auburn University rests, the battle cry is a resounding War Eagle. They call that place the loveliest village on the plains. All right, YouTube, let's get this comment section active here. The Fearless and True Gang, we talk about a lot of stuff in the comment section. I definitely appreciate all the feedback from the comment section as we go into the 2019 season. We remember 2018, although very productive defensively, only allowing about 19 points per game. There were some small items with the defense that proved to be costly, especially their play down the stretch between Mississippi State and Alabama, allowing over 400 yards per game and 28 points per game was very abysmal for the defense. Now, the offense didn't help a lot of times, and special teams didn't help a lot of times as it relates to field position, but the results still stand nonetheless. We talk about a lot of, when I look at video footage on particular football games, I like to see the certain trends of certain games, and I can always point at some items that will come back to bite. Now, one of those things, the main things, especially when you watch Auburn football, one of the main items that usually comes back to bite the Auburn Tigers on offense is their inability to score consistently in the red zone and also third down conversions. I even look at the play against Mississippi State. It was 3rd down and 2, and Auburn calls a end around type pass, and Darius Slayton was like literally wide open. I can visually see this play right now. Although it was a well dialed up play, Auburn was struggling a little bit offensively to keep the chains moving. I just think that's a very low percentage play for a 3rd down when you need to keep the chains moving. Although, yeah, it was dialed up perfectly. I just think that was the wrong play at the wrong time for the Auburn Tigers. You need a more high percentage play and go ahead and get the 1st down. Now, don't get me wrong. If he would have caught the football, of course, it's genius in nature. But then in hindsight, you look at it, hey, man, let's go ahead and get the 1st down and let's keep the chains moving. Very well designed, dialed up play, but overthrown by Jarrett Stidham. Now, this is debatable. This is just my opinion on that particular play at that particular time. So you look at the Auburn offense and, just very anemic up front, just not able to push the opposing defensive line and get those 3rd down conversions. And like I said before, red zone scoring was pretty costly as well. But one of the things that I looked at, I started because I thought about it, and I remembered seeing it a couple of different times with the Auburn defense going into, looking back at 2018. And one thing that I noticed with the defense is their allowance of late touchdowns or scores just before the half. The reason why this is a glaring stat is because when a team scores a touchdown late in the half, what that usually does is it gives the opposing team momentum. Now, for some of you more casual fans, you may not understand this at the surface, but I'm going to illustrate this to you. Let's say you're up 14-7. You got some momentum going, and then your defense allows a late score. Now the score is 14-14. And then let's just say, for example, the opposing team has the possession arrow for the second half. That means they receive the kick for the second half. You have an opportunity to create a 14-point swing, which actually did happen, which I will illustrate down the stretch of this video. Now, when we go into, we look back at the 2018 season, the game 1 against Washington. Washington scored on a 4-play, 75-yard drive with only 40 seconds left in the half. Now, this was very costly for Auburn because it closed an already unnecessary gap. If you look back at that game, Auburn was in the red zone 5 times, scoring 1 touchdown, missing 1 field goal, and the rest, of course, were field goals. So you're talking about an unnecessarily close game to begin with, and the gap to be closed right before the half, and Washington actually eventually takes a lead to where Auburn had to come back unnecessarily from behind to win that particular football game. That almost proved very, very costly for the Auburn Tigers, as it did in other games moving forward. We talk about the Mississippi State game as well. Auburn was already struggling to find points, and a really shaky linebacker play. Had a six, the score was 6-3 late in the first half. But this wasn't all, or this particular drive wasn't all on the defense. As a matter of fact, Ryan Davis fumbles a potential punt return, gives Mississippi State the ball on the 38-yard line, and Nick Fitzgerald eventually scores a touchdown. Very controversial call, I think. I'm really thinking that he was down, but of course, it counts as a touchdown. It's too close to call. But that created some momentum for Mississippi State. Instead of Auburn only being down 6-3, Auburn is now down by 10 points. And if you think about how Auburn struggled offensively, 10 points is actually a lot for a struggling offense, okay? And definitely struggling against Mississippi State, because Mississippi State played very well up front on defense in that particular game. Unfortunate was the fumble by Boobie Whitlow just outside the goal line. Very questionable, but nonetheless, you just don't want to even cut it that close. Go ahead and cross the goal line. Auburn eventually loses that game 23-9, but it's all traced back to a last-minute first half touchdown by Mississippi State. As we move forward to the Tennessee game, Tennessee actually scores a field goal right before the half, closing the gap after Auburn looked like it was starting to kind of pull away. Auburn's only up 17-13, which led to 13 unanswered points for Tennessee, eventually beating Auburn. Another score right before the half, creating momentum, creating hope for a team that hadn't won an SEC game in a very long time. Auburn loses that game 30-24. Moving on to Texas A&M, Auburn had a 4-point lead here in the first half with about 4 minutes left. But Travion Williams scores on a 14-yard reception to end the half. Now, this almost proved deadly for Auburn, because what happened is Texas A&M scored that touchdown, and then they turned around and scored a touchdown on their opening drive. So you talk about that 14-point swing that I was telling you guys about, but Auburn fortunate to have that interception by Noah Igbenogany and eventually coming back to win that particular game. But that 14-point swing almost proved deadly for Auburn in that particular game, and it had the fan base thinking, hey, this is another game that is absolutely over. Gus Malzahn might have lost his job if he would have lost that game against Texas A&M. Probably the worst one of all, guys, the one that kind of stings me the most, is the touchdown allowed in the Georgia game right before the half. Georgia had already scored a touchdown in the drive before, but this one added insult to injury because Georgia was facing 4th down and 3 with just a little bit of time left in the first half, and Georgia scores on a 38-yard pass. Just a routine play. Everyone seemingly out of position. Georgia goes up 20-10 in a game that Auburn was playing fairly decently. And Auburn squandered the lead. Auburn put themselves down 10 points. Georgia only scored 7 points in the second half. But, you already down. Your offense is not, all that productive. Proves to be costly again. So one thing going into the 2019 season, Auburn has got to have some urgency as it relates to late in the first half scores, because those things generate a lot of momentum, and it also creates an opportunity to where you have large point swings in short periods of time. Once again, it's K2 the GOAT for Vernon Speaks Sports. We're talking Auburn football. Go ahead and leave a comment in the comment section of how you feel about this particular subject, or maybe some other items with the Auburn defense that we might have missed here on this channel. Also, go ahead and subscribe to Vernon Speaks Sports. Like where we're headed with this channel going into the 2019 season for the Auburn Tigers. Once again, guys, War Eagle.